Hi and welcome back to Zoëthopia. We believe that knowledge is power. My name is Zoe Robertson. I am here to empower you through knowledge and motivation, and I am not a professor. Let's get to learning. And in today's video, we are actually learning more about a subject that we learned some about a couple of years ago, which is Franz Kafka's The Trial, a book that I personally love, and I think you might as well. There's just some things you need to be aware of when it comes to it. A lot of people find the book hard to read because of the surrealism and the jumpiness of the book, but this actually has its reasons. Surrealism was underage, but the jumpiness, he died in 1924 and the book was published in 1925, and when the book was published, it was done by his friend who was also a publisher, who had to sort through all these documents he had, because he had written a lot of chapters for the book, albeit not all of them, but he did have an ending, but none of the chapters were numerical. He had no idea which chapter was supposed to go where, so he just had to guess as well as he could and put it all together and get it to a book. And so we probably are missing a lot of the parts between the last thing we have and the end. There are probably supposed to be like more ending chapters, but at least we have the final conclusion. So hopefully that can explain the jumpiness of the book and the surrealism in the book a little bit better and make it more accessible, because I know it is a hard read, but it's sort of a read where you just have to go with the flow, because you know that something weird is going to happen at every turn, and I personally find that exciting. Some might find it like tiresome, but it's a read where you really just have to be like, okay, whatever happens, happens. So I thought that today we could first look at the book, sort of the structure of the book. There will be like spoilers technically, but with a classic, oftentimes you do read about the book before you read it anyways, because otherwise it may be pretty hard to read, and especially with a book like this. So yes, if you want, you can just skip to the next chapter of this video. I will be chaptering it and quickly going to summarize the book basically before we move on to the review, and I tell you like what I personally liked or didn't like about the book and what you can expect. So the book is about a man named Kay, who is a banker waiting for his breakfast to be served on his 30th birthday, but two strange men come to his house and say that he's under arrest, and he's like, okay, this is an awesome prank, like I'm 30 years old, my friends are playing a prank on me, obviously I'm not under arrest, and they're like, you are under arrest, but you can stay here and you can still go to work, and he's like, how's that an arrest? And they're like, you'll know. So his life continues as normal, except for that he has all these hearings and stuff, and he has this like looming thing over him all the time that he is under arrest, and that a trial, that it's building up to a trial. The book's called The Trial, and through the book he's trying to find out, who am I going on trial for and what have I done, because they won't tell him why he's under arrest. So he's like trying to figure out, okay, what have I done? And then he's also like meeting people in the system slowly but surely, but never the higher up, so he never actually meets the people who are like judging him. And eventually he goes from being this like super cocky, confident banker who's like totally on the rise to being completely broken by the system, so much so that he actually believes himself to be guilty, even though he has no idea of what he is guilty. So on his 31st birthday, which is the end of the book, he's actually sentenced to death, and he saw this coming since he was guilty, he believed. And the way he is killed is very unorthodox. It's not the way you would think when you're sentenced to death. It's more like when you're robbed by thugs. He gets a knife to the heart, and the final thoughts in his head are also the final words of the book, which are like a dog, or as a dog, but all this machismo, all the bravado has just left him, and he believes himself to be guilty. He has been broken down by the system, and he is slaughtered like a dog. And there are so many ways to interpret this short little book. If it even is a book, it's like a novella. There are many ways to interpret this book, but no matter how you interpret it, it is sort of very clear that this is an allegory, or sort of like a parallel to the like weight that bureaucracy holds in society, and how much we depend upon systems that are ruled by people that we have no way of getting into contact with, that we will probably never meet and sometimes won't even know the name of, and that like they control our finances, our education, our freedom, all of these things. And it's just like this faceless, nameless thing. It's like everything's within a bureaucracy and a system, but you have no idea, like, but who is behind the system? Why are they ruling me? But I have no idea who they are. And the sort of like crushing bureaucracy that we saw in the beginning of the modern time, I don't think anyone has depicted that as beautifully as Kafka does in this story. And some actually believe that Kafka, with this book, sort of foresaw Nazi Germany. And that is like the classic example of bureaucracy crushing humans, and these unknown people with unknown authority dragging others out of their home to their fate without them knowing why, what they did wrong, how to stop it, with no way to actually get in contact with the system itself or change the system. It's just ruling your life and determining your fate. And, you know, maybe to some extent, Kafka actually wrote about himself in an unknown future, because, you know, Kafka, he was Jewish and he was living in Germany, and I think already then maybe he could sense the direction in which Germany was going, and that maybe if he had stayed in Germany, if he had not died of tuberculosis in 1924, perhaps this could have been his fate. Dragged out of his home, placed under arrest for no reason at all, with no knowledge of any trial or how long he's under arrest for, or if you're ever getting out of arrest, or if you're getting a death sentence, or who placed you under arrest, or who ratted you out. That's also a big thing. Someone has ratted K out, but he doesn't know who. And I mean, we know in Nazi Germany, people were ratting out their Jewish neighbors left and right, and they didn't know how serious that would be for those families. But in a lot of cases, it ended with death, like it did for Kay. And so it's, for me, this book is actually very historically relevant as well, and just to understand sort of modernism. There are a lot of people who say that modernism culminated in the Holocaust. Actually, there's a book that we read my second year of college. How do I say it in English? It's by Zygmunt Bauman, and it is about the modern and the Holocaust. Maybe, yeah, the modern and Holocaust, moderniteten og Holocaustteten. It's called in a region, but now I'm babbling. So moving on. This book is a wild ride, and half of the time you don't even know where you are or where you're going. And I personally think that's amazing. Like, I love that there's something new behind every door and every corner, and Kafka really does take us on a trip. There are also a lot of interesting, colorful characters that like come and go, and their stories don't end because Kafka didn't have time to finish it before he died. But we have Kay through the whole thing, and he's also a very interesting character, and like I said, he changes a lot, but he also has this very strange strategy that I find hilarious throughout the book. I was like, what is this happening again? Because he would seduce women over and over, or like different women, because he was recruiting them to help him with this trial. I mean, in the end, he was condemned guilty anyway, so I'm not sure if it helped in any way, but he left this like trail of just seduced women who were just head over heels in love with him, and like he charmed every woman, and he was like, yeah, I'll have sex with you if you help me with my trial, and they were like, okay. I thought that was a very interesting and funny part of the book. There are also a lot of hidden gems and small stories in this book that really make the reading worthwhile. A lot of profound things and interesting things, like, oh, I haven't thought of that before, and they're said by like any character, just like a random priest or a banker that Kay works with, and there are just these moments of, yeah, that's true, like that's very interesting, I haven't heard him that way before. And it really shows Kafka's intelligence, but it makes the book more than just a goofy read. I would obviously recommend this book to anyone who loves surrealism. This is surrealism at its finest, but also people who are interested in modernism as both a period and a form of literature, and also postmodernism, honestly, because it does, as I said, border on postmodernism. But anyone who's interested in that like early 1900s stuff, this book is perfect. Historically, also for anyone who's interested in like 1920s and the societal shift that took place, this is a really good book for that, considering how deep it goes into this allegory about the bureaucracy. And if you, like me, just enjoy a book with like twists and turns that is just like a crazy ride and has good characters and it's just a fun time if you can just like go, I definitely recommend this book. And I want to recommend it to everyone, but I know that not everyone likes a surrealist book, but I personally, I love it, and I love this book, and I cannot speak highly enough about it. So that is my little follow-up on Kafka's The Trial. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you subscribe and that I see you next time. Take care.